caught my fiancé cheating while on holiday. So I booked a one-way flight back and left the divorce papers ready for when she returned. So, I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything that happened. This is a long one, but I feel like I need to share my story. My fiancée, Laura, and I had been together for 4 years. We were planning our wedding for next summer, and everything seemed perfect. That's why I was so excited when we booked a week-long getaway to a beautiful resort in Mexico. We had both been working so hard, and I thought this trip would be the perfect way to reconnect and celebrate our love. The first few days were blissful. We lounged by the pool, indulged in delicious food, and explored the local culture. However, on the fourth night, things took a turn. I had been feeling a bit under the weather, probably from all the sun and mojitos, and I decided to call it an early night. I told Laura I wasn't feeling well and would head back to the hotel while she stayed at the bar with some friends we had met. She insisted she would only stay for a little while and would come back soon. I fell asleep quickly but woke up hours later. It was around 2 a.m. and I noticed the bed was still empty. A knot tightened in my stomach. I tried to brush it off, thinking she must have lost track of time, but as the minutes ticked by, my unease grew. I decided to go look for her. I made my way back to the bar, the lights flickering and the music still pumping. As I approached, I scanned the crowd, and that's when I saw her. My heart sank. There she was, laughing and leaning into a man, his hands wrapped around her waist. They were sharing a moment that felt far too intimate. I stood frozen, watching as they shared drinks, their heads close together, whispering and giggling like they were the only two people in the world. Then it happened. They leaned in, and I watched in disbelief as their lips met. It felt like the ground had crumbled beneath me. I was in shock. All the love and affection I thought we shared shattered in an instant. I turned and walked away, my heart racing, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and betrayal. I didn't know what to do. I felt like I was in a terrible dream that I couldn't wake up from. I returned to the hotel room, sat on the edge of the bed, and tried to process what I had just witnessed. I felt like I was suffocating. The air was thick with betrayal and heartbreak. After hours of tossing and turning, I made a decision. I couldn't confront her right then. My emotions were too raw, and I didn't want to make a scene. Instead, I booked a flight back home for the next morning. I couldn't bear to see her again, knowing what she had done. The flight home felt surreal. I was surrounded by families and couples, and I felt like an outsider, a ghost in my own life. Once I arrived home, my heart was heavy with the weight of the betrayal. I knew I had to take action. I had never imagined I would be in this position, but I felt that I deserved better. I went to a lawyer's office and filed for divorce. It felt strange to put my signature on those papers, but it was a necessary step. I didn't want to confront Laura in person. I didn't want to give her the chance to explain or manipulate the situation. I wrote her a letter instead, detailing everything I had seen and how I felt. I left the divorce papers on our dining table, along with the letter, and packed a few essentials before moving out to stay with a friend. I didn't hear from Laura for a while, and when she finally reached out, it was a mix of anger and desperation. She wanted to talk, to explain herself, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart raced, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. I had made my decision, and I couldn't let her manipulate my feelings any longer. Eventually, I moved on, but the scars of that betrayal lingered. I learned to prioritize myself and my happiness, something I had neglected for too long. I started focusing on my career and rediscovered hobbies that had fallen by the wayside. I even began dating again, though it took time for me to trust anyone fully. Looking back, I still feel a mix of sadness and relief. I lost someone I thought I would spend my life with, but I also learned valuable lessons about love, trust, and self-worth. I realized that I deserved someone who was committed and honest, someone who would never betray me in such a painful way. I guess what I want to say to anyone reading this is, trust your instincts. If something feels off, don't ignore it. Your heart knows more than you give it credit for. And remember, you deserve love that is true and unwavering. Thanks for reading my story. On to the next story. Wife went on a girls' trip, and I discovered from a friend's social media that she was spending the trip with another man she had a fling with. Decided to share the social media post to the rest of her family before divorcing her for good. I feel like I need to get this off my chest. It's about my wife, Georgia, and the shocking discovery I made while she was supposedly on a girls' trip. To give you some context, Georgia and I have been married for 6 years. We met in college, and I always thought we had a solid relationship. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but I believed we were committed to each other. I work a demanding job, and Georgia has always been supportive, so when she announced she wanted to take a weekend trip with her friends, I encouraged her to go. I thought it would be a great way for her to unwind and reconnect with her old pals. The first day of her trip, she sent me a couple of texts sharing how much fun she was having. I was happy for her, but as the days went on, I noticed something odd. Georgia usually posts updates on social media, but her posts were sparse. I brushed it off, thinking she was just enjoying her time. But then, a friend of hers posted a picture that made my heart drop. In the photo, I saw Georgia laughing, her head thrown back in that carefree way I loved. But next to her was a man I recognized, Ethan, a guy she had a brief fling with back in college. They had dated for a few months before she and I got serious. I had always been insecure about that part of her past, but I thought we had moved past it. Seeing them together, looking so comfortable, sent a chill down my spine. I scrolled through the comments, and it was clear they were spending time together. Friends were tagging each other, and the caption read, "Girls trip with a surprise guest." My heart raced as I felt a wave of betrayal wash over me. I knew I had to confront her, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions without knowing the full story. I waited until the end of the trip. When Georgia returned, I tried to act normal, but I could feel the tension building inside me. That evening, I decided to bring it up. I casually asked her about her trip, and she recounted stories of late-night chats and silly adventures. I smiled and nodded, but inside, I was a storm of emotions. Finally, I couldn't hold back any longer. "Did you spend time with Ethan?" I asked, my voice steady but my heart racing. Her face went pale. "What? No. Why would you think that?" she replied, her eyes widening with panic. I pulled out my phone and showed her the post. Her expression shifted from panic to guilt in an instant. "It was just a coincidence," she stammered, but I could see the cracks forming in her facade. I pressed her further, and the truth spilled out. She had been spending time with him, reminiscing about their past. She insisted it was innocent, that they were just friends catching up, but the damage was done. I felt like the ground had been pulled from under me. I had trusted her, and now I was faced with the reality that she had chosen to share her time with someone from her past instead of being honest with me. I spent the rest of the night in silence, replaying our years together in my mind, questioning everything. The next day, I made a decision. I knew I couldn't stay in a relationship built on secrecy and betrayal. I decided to share the social media post with her family. I felt it was important for them to know the truth about their daughter, sister, and friend. I crafted a message explaining the situation, including the photo and my feelings of betrayal. I hit send, and a wave of relief washed over me, despite the impending storm it would cause. Within hours, my phone lit up with notifications. Her family was shocked, and I could see the confusion and concern in their responses. I felt guilty for putting them in that position, but I also felt empowered. I was no longer going to be the one left in the dark. Georgia confronted me later that day, her eyes red from crying. "You didn't have to do that," she said, her voice trembling. I looked her in the eye and told her that she had made her choices, and now she had to face the consequences. I told her I needed space to think, to process everything that had happened. Over the next few weeks, I found clarity. I realized that I deserved better than a relationship filled with doubt and betrayal. I filed for divorce, and while it was painful, I felt a sense of freedom that I hadn't felt in years. Georgia tried to reach out, but I kept my distance. I knew that I needed to focus on healing and rebuilding my life. In the end, I learned a lot about myself through this experience. I learned that trust is fragile and that sometimes people don't value what they have until it's gone. I also learned that it's okay to prioritize my own well-being over someone else's mistakes. I'm now in a much better place, surrounded by supportive friends and family who have helped me through this difficult time. I'm slowly rediscovering myself and what I want in life. I never thought I'd be here, but I'm grateful for the lessons learned, even if they came at a high cost. What did you think of these stories? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and thanks for listening.